I was conceived on the banks of the Guadalupe River in a tent.
And they weren't just camping, right?
Yeah, they were partying.
Okay.
And my mother, she was just kind of getting started. She had been partying, but she hadn't gotten to all the heavy stuff yet. My dad was a meth cook for the Bandidos.
Oh, boy. I'm Matt Handy, and you're listening to My Last Relapse. Okay, so Curtis, how are you?
Good.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. So Nikki's your wife.
Nikki's my wife.
Okay. And you and her like intimately involved with Story of Self.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron is coming on soon.
Yeah.
Tell me about Story of Self, like all that stuff. And then after all that's done, we'll go back to like you and your childhood and we'll go forward again. So
Story of Self was a thing that Aaron, you mentioned him, developed in a high school setting. Right. And when I ended up going to treatment, he was over the extended care. And Story of Self, it wasn't what it is now. It was lessons. Then it wasn't the whole curriculum. He might have had it, but we weren't doing that then.
Yeah.
But it was the lessons that were with it. And man, I remember this is like a really pivotal moment in my recovery in general. Was Aaron, he's not a drug addict. He's not an alcoholic. And we sit there, and one thing he does is you'll sit and tell him your life story. He give you an hour. And I did that, and then he's like, okay, and he gets up and he puts me on the board. And he tells me, like, how I respond to situations, how the fear that I walk. I mean, very specific things that I think no one knows about me, right? That I think make me different than everyone else. Mm-hmm. And when he does this, I have this aha moment of maybe I'm not unique. Right? This guy who hasn't been through what I've been through, who hasn't done the things I've done, who doesn't struggle the way I struggle, is showing me exactly like who I am and how I'm moving. So that was like a chink in the armor there, for me, and like taking an honest look at myself and instead of running away from it. And we were in treatment for about 3 months, somewhere in there. I left at 27 days, and Nikki she came in after me and got my bed.
You left for her, right?
I'd like to package it up like that.
Yeah.
It sounds good. And I used to do that. Like, I even when I went in there and talked to the owners, I'm like, look, I'm going to give her my bed. She's going to die. Really, like, I don't know that if I wanted to get high, but I didn't want to do any of the shit they were doing, right? Okay. I didn't want to do any of the groups. I didn't want to do any of that. I was like, look, like, I'm going to be good. I got these consequences looming over my head right now. That'll keep me sober for a while, but my wife is out there. She's going to die. She's with my son.
Okay.
So,
that's how she packages it.
Yeah.
Is that you left for her too?
Yeah, I know. And of course I did, right? She told me that she felt like she was going to die that night when she went home. Of course I did. But the selfish alcoholic in me wanted to go home and see if I had any drugs in the closet. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Anyways, we're in treatment for a while. We kind of got recruited a little bit to become counselors. And at the time I had a Delta 8 business, and I had some vape stores, and we had a cabinet company, and we ended up shutting down the Delta 8 company and going back to school to be counselors, me and her both. And when I hired on as an intern, that's what we hired in as, to do the extended care. And I started coaching it. I had never done it, like done the actual writing part of it. And I would start coaching it with my clients. Mm-hmm. And I saw, really the first time it was done, I saw this guy, this really good friend of mine that did it. He was one of the first people that did it. Really reserved, quiet guy, and he got up there, and the things that he was saying and the presentation that he did, it blew my mind. Mm-hmm. And I saw a pivot in him from that day. He's still one of my best friends. I was just with him last week, and he's just so much different now. And I saw that change in him, and it really made me a believer in what Aaron was doing. And my wife was alongside of him, and they're both brilliant. When they get to meeting, I just bounce. I'm like, we talking about business stuff, I'll hang out. But y'all are talking about curriculum and all that, I'm out of here.
Okay.
But yeah, so I coached it for a while, and then I went to at the Orchard, they made me director of operations, so they kind of split me away from them. Mm-hmm. but I was still whatever they needed. If I needed to be out there in extended care, we tried to do it outside of the orchard a couple times. With success. We did it for free with some friends and friends of friends.
Is that where Andy did it?
Andy did it. She did it this year at one of the workshops. I don't remember which one. We've done so many this year. But yeah, she did it this year at one of the workshops. So the first one we did it at my father-in-law's ranch. We had like 6 people, and we took people that weren't, some of them had addiction issues, but the majority didn't. We took a veteran. We're trying to see how this was going to hit others.
Yeah.
And it hit. We did it in 48 hours, the first time we had ever done that. And the veteran guy that was there was like, man, I have some friends that killed themselves that would probably still be alive if they had the opportunity to do this. And it opened up that door to us. We're like, oh, wow. Yeah. We didn't even think about that. We didn't want to have like the addiction jacket right off. This is an addiction program. It is, but it's also mental health program. It's also for PTSD. It's also for all these other things as well.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't want to be jammed in that box.
It also sounds like this is the kind of thing where somebody who doesn't have like addiction problems but has life problems in general, a lot of people have sexual trauma. A lot of people have stuff that they are not willing to talk about, and this sounds like breakthrough type stuff for people that are typically not. So a lot of people in recovery already are geared for like introspective work.
Yeah.
And a lot of the most people in the world are not in recovery, and most people in the world are not taught how to be healthy, taught how to like work through things emotionally in a healthy, especially men. Men are completely boxed into this, like, what a lot of people say is like, you got to be stoic, but it has nothing to do with stoicism. It's just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Right. And so this sounds like one of those things where like the average person can participate in this and like kind of reach down and grab the things that are fucking them up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool because like the sexual traumas and stuff like that, we're not really looking at those big traumas.
Yeah.
Right? We can go in there and we can look at that stuff. But what I've noticed is it's events around that trauma.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And not only like my whole childhood is a lot of big trauma, right? From the time I was born to the time I was, old enough to not experience childhood trauma, I guess. And every time I would sit in front of a therapist, we want to talk about the sexual abuse. We want to talk about that kind of stuff, the big stuff. And we talk about it and we talk about it. And then oftentimes they're like, well, what should that kid have felt or something like that? And I never really got closure. It was easy for me to, I'd work you with that information, right? I'm a professional victim, so I know how to tell you how bad my childhood is. So you're like, yeah, of course you're going to prison again. Man,
yeah,
of course you're doing this again.
Let me ask you something. You know who Dr. Shaw is, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, Dr. Shaw and I have like a running dialogue. We do a lot of conversations like off the camera. Like we sit and record our conversations. One of the things that we've kind of ran into is like the separation between big and small trauma. And the reality is the hardest thing you've ever gone through, the hardest thing you've ever gone through is the hardest thing you've ever gone through. The hardest thing this person's ever gone through. It's the hardest thing they've ever gone through. And you and I can experience the same exact circumstance. We could be at the same exact situation and you could walk away with a completely different trauma, having experienced the same exact thing. And so, what we are thinking moving forward is like not making the separation between big and little trauma, but just accepting trauma, like whatever the baseline trauma is that's the baseline trauma. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a doctor, and like getting into all mine. I'll just tell you about mine. I'm trying to explain this in a way where it's easy to understand. So we got time. Yeah. Well, my defining moment, is what we call that's like the trauma that we're looking at, right? In Store Yourself. And mine, it wasn't sexual abuse. It wasn't neglect. It wasn't.
Do you have all that?
Beaten. Yes. All of that.
Okay.
Right. It was when I was 12 years old. I was the captain of the B team. Everybody laughs when I say that, but I was proud of that, man. I was a little guy, but I loved to play football, and I was in all the advanced classes, right? And it was a pep rally day. I put on my jersey. We're going with typical intermediate 7th grade. We're going to get on stage. It's going to be a pep rally. And I'm standing in the hallway with the captain of the A team and the head cheerleader, and this girl comes down the hallway and makes fun of my teeth. Mm-hmm. She's like, I'm laughing, and she goes, "What are you looking at, Bucky?" And I remember in that, I can tell you the color of the lockers, the lights. I can tell you everything about this moment, right? Because this is the moment that really changed my life, right? It wasn't being sexually abused. It wasn't being neglected. It was this. That might have shaped me in a way, but this is where you can really see because school was taken from me then, right? And I was safe at school. I excelled at school. I did good at school, right? But I would also, like, when she did that, it's like, oh, they see me now. I'm a fraud, right? And I'm trying to fit in with these kids, and I know I belong with that girl that was making fun of me. You know, like, I shouldn't be in this crowd. Anyway, so we get on stage that night or that afternoon. And
what do you mean by that? That you know that you belong with the girl that made fun of you?
So the girl that made fun of me, she had really bad teeth, like the kind that you couldn't hide. Mine you could hide when I was a kid. Okay. You could hide them, and hers you couldn't hide. So when she said that, like, and I knew that I belonged in that group, right? Because I would see myself in the mirror, and I was really self-conscious about it. And when she called it out, it was like, I mean, my world broke,
shattered
right then. You know. And then fast forward like 2 hours, we had the pep rally, right? So it was me and this dude, Brandon, and we have to get on the stage, and they have these 2 buckets of ice water in front of us. And it's, you put your feet in, and whoever lasts the longest would be the coolest football player. And, man, I put my feet in, and look, I woke up that day knowing I was going to kick Brandon's ass at this, right? And I sit down on this stage, I put my feet in, and I look over at Brandon, and I look out there, and everybody's laughing and cheering, and all I'm trying to do is hide my teeth. I'm sitting there on stage in front of all these kids trying to hide my teeth, thinking when they laugh, they're laughing at me. Yeah. You know, so I quit. Right there in that moment, I quit everything. I got up from that stage, I walked out, and Aaron actually, I never thought about this. And when I initially wrote my story, and he's like, "How'd that kid feel on the way home?" Dude, I walked like 5 miles home by myself. I remember I dropped my jersey in the street. I was done. I quit everything. In my mind on the way home was fuck everybody. And within 2 years, I was being brought home as a runaway. I was on drugs every day. You know, I ended up going to the alternative of the alternative school, where you get, you know, tickets if you turn left in the hallway, you get a ticket. And I ended up dropping out, like, I don't know, when I was 16 or something. I graduated from homeschool. So, but yeah, so like, take all that big trauma, all that stuff. Yeah, it made me who I am. But this really is the place where my whole world split in two. Yeah. You know, and we want to dissect that moment. Yeah. And the belief that I had is a standard, the belief that I ended up with is a standard alcoholic belief, which is I don't belong, right? That's pretty standard across all alcoholics. But we get them all different. You know, I'm not good enough. They're all kind of different beliefs, and we dissect those and we disprove them. But, yeah, so we won't not look at the big trauma, but we want to look at it from a different angle. Yeah. We want to look at it at, like, if there is sexual abuse, something like that. I don't, just throwing something out. Maybe they went and told somebody and they brushed them off. Let's look at that moment. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Let's look at, you tell somebody that's supposed to be your protector, somebody say, and then they just like, oh, that didn't happen. Whatever. Like, let's take a look at that moment. Right? Because something happened here, but something really happened here, you know? So we just look at it from a different angle, and we dissect it a little bit different.
That's super interesting, right? So I was sexually abused. I talk about it all the time. And one of the things that, after doing like a lot of the work and like really doing, like intensive work with the therapist, at the end of all that, my therapist was like, "You're not using over sexual trauma, dude. Like, you're using over other shit, but you're not using over that." And in my, like, inside of my body, I was like, yes. You know, like, okay. Like, because I had already always thought that. Yeah. I'd always, like, in my head thought, it happened. I remember it. It definitely happened. But it never seemed to be, like, the issue. The issue was, I mean, I could point to a bunch of other shit that were bigger issues to me that make that look crazy, right? Because it's like, okay, the neglect or like I'm the oldest of 10 kids, right? That was more traumatic ultimately in my story because I never had the connection with my parents that I probably should have. And when I tell people that, like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you got sexually abused. Like, yeah, but it really wasn't that big of a deal to me. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You know, like I used not over being sexually abused. I used over my complete disconnect from my family, like all of my childhood.
Yeah.
By the time I was 13, we had 8 kids in the family. There was never like connection, right? And so it's interesting that you say that because it just really rings true, at least for what I've discovered about myself.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. I mean, that's what everybody wants to look at.
Yeah.
The big payday, right? Where did he touch you? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Let's try something different. It was that was one of the big eye openers I had in doing this and going through it. And I talk about it's like, man, after EMDR, after doing all these things that I've been doing for years, I mean, probably spent $100,000 on counselors, you know, with over 20 years, and them sitting there and me just working them, and it's the same conversation over and over again. They're all using the same playbook.
Yeah.
The playbook is the same. Their location is different, but they are all using the same playbook. And I don't know the numbers. I don't know the exact numbers, but from the time all of this stuff was brought about, like the CBT and all that in the 50s, I think it was, to now, everything has gotten worse, way worse.
Oh yeah.
You know,
You're talking about like efficacy and outcomes and shit like that. Dude, yeah. I look at that often, right? Because what I always point to is there's been 100 years since Bill and Bob. We're coming up on 100 years since that was really like developed and put forth to the world. They had like 100% success rate for years. Like if you interacted with this program, you were going to get sober.
Yeah.
How did we get to a point where it's completely opposite now, where it's like you have to go to treatment 7 times before you stay clean for a year? How did that happen?
Yeah, I have one theory about that is that back then, like what they were going to like the psych wards. And they were going to these hospitals, and these guys that they were working with were they were at the last house on the block.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas now you get a first DWI treatment, you know, you get a PI, mom sends you to treatment. You must have a problem. So I think it's diluted. It's very diluted with people that maybe aren't alcoholics and drug addicts. So the success rate doesn't matter, right? Because you can get out and you can control and enjoy it, like I've often tried to do. But I can't. So, and if you can do that, is that a failure, or is that, you know, it's
no. You and I are 100% in alignment about this. Where not only is it diluted because it's a preventative measure, where you get any kind of interaction like, with a negative consequence around any kind of substance, and you're immediately sent to rehab.
Go get that paper signed.
Yep. And so there's a lot of muddying the waters right there, but then also. I 100% agree. It's like, yeah, psych wards, jails, or you're going to die. And these were people who historically had just already fucked up their entire life, fucked up their marriages. Like they were older. They were already like, had been suffering for decades around this stuff. So when they finally interact with this answer or this solution, they all grabbed onto it and held on for dear life. Whereas now it's like people are having it shoved down their throat. And 2 things, like you already said, was maybe they don't even belong, right? Because they aren't like a traditional garden variety alcoholic or addict. It's a preventative measure, but then also when you really look at like something that I've seen is that 19-year-old that got the DUI with weed gets put in the same box as like the alcoholic who's fucked up his life after 30 years of drinking. And this kid has these consequences over his head, and he goes out there and relapses and then comes back and then goes back out there and relapses and comes back. And he looks like he's in a full-blown addictive relapse cycle. And really he just wants to smoke weed still.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like those 2 things are being correlated together.
Yeah.
And now we're labeling people with, it's like a big deal to be like labeled an alcoholic and an addict for an alcoholic or an addict. But it's really not for the rest of the world to look at somebody and be like, you've had consequences around substances, so you must be an addict.
Yeah. They don't understand. Well, that's a misinterpretation of most people that aren't familiar with AA. Consequences make me an alcoholic, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
You know, because like take me and my wife. I've been to prison twice. I have a lot of convictions. My wife's never had one.
Yeah.
You know, never had one. But we can't keep it. We can't put it down and keep it down. And when I put it in my body, I need more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what makes me different from the hard drinker. And it took 20 years for me to understand that.
Yeah.
It took a long time for me to understand that.
I think it should. Like,
Yeah.
I've known a couple of people who had one negative experience and they completely shifted their trajectory based on that. And I don't know if,
God bless them.
yeah, for sure. I don't know if like they would have kept going on, if there would have been like some kind of corrective measure and then they could have drank like a normal person or whatever. Look, I'm happy that they're living a good life.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not normal. And basically, this is what I'm looking for is like really the solution to that situation, which ultimately is one of the, it's a situation that's going to result in a very tragic situation, probably anyway, is you got to do the family work.
Yeah.
Nobody says that. Nobody's like, yeah. And I know why. It's because you can't charge. There is no medical billing code for like family therapy. There is no.
I never even thought about that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so my whole question around this framework is if we are not fulfilling our obligation to the family, because ultimately it might not be their $30,000, but it's their insurance, it's their investment, whatever. Like, if we're not fulfilling that obligation to the family, are we failing in our obligation to the client? And if we are failing our obligation to the client, are we intentionally doing this to make money?
Yeah.
And she was like, you know what? I got to go. I'm like, dude, I'm just asking questions that when you like think logically down a certain path, like these are the conclusions that you have to logically come up with is if you're not willing to tell somebody you cannot participate in our program because we don't want, like, here's the thing. 19-year-old on fentanyl, you lower his tolerance for 30 days and then he goes out there and relapses, he's going to die. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at it honestly, like from like an intake perspective, there's multiple things going on with a single intake. There's the admissions people that want the admission. There's the BD people that want that admission. There's, you know, and so there's like all of these things that kind of really point to like, we're going to get him in no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if it's detrimental to his life, we're going to get him in no matter what. Because the clinical, they've got things like, well, we're going to hook him with the vision. But guess what? Like, it doesn't matter if you, like, how many times have I been hooked? I've had spiritual experiences at a Metallica concert.
Yeah.
Dude, like, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, the reality is when using becomes a viable option, all that shit's out the window.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about coping mechanisms. I'm not thinking about like box breathing or calling my sponsor. My thought process has already gotten so extreme that it's a viable option. All that stuff's out the window.
Yeah.
And so when you send a healing person into a sick situation, what do you think is going to happen? You think it's logical to think that that person is going to continue to heal? It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Like when you say it like that, it's like, you know, so it's like, well, if you're not willing to turn people away based on what you can, and it's an assumption.
Nobody's turning that kid away. No, I mean,
nobody that I know is gonna.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
everybody's taking that insurance.
For sure.
But what happens to the kid? What do you do with the kid? Right. Yeah. Then it comes in the conversations I've had with families about like, I start off like this. I'm going to tell you things that I don't know if I could do with my own son, you know, and these are the things that, you know, you got to cut him off. You know, the only time that you need to be answering the phone is when he has set up or she has set up a treatment thing already and they need you to give him a ride, you know, not for you to go do it or something like that.
The hard truth around those conversations with the family is, a lot of them are not geared to think introspectively and accept the fact that they've contributed to the demise of their child. And so when you have to put that in front of a family and say, just like this person has a part in this, the decision making, the terrible decision making, the neglect of their responsibilities as a son or a brother or whatever, all of that is true. But additionally, you have enabled them to kill themselves slowly.
For sure.
they're all going to be like, they're everybody's first response to constructive critiques is to be defensive, right? And then if they can overcome that, then there's more room to work with around like doing what needs to get done. But if you can't get over that first hurdle of like, I'm not attacking you, we're just looking at this objectively, then the likelihood is they're not going to participate.
Yeah. Well, me and Nikki actually had this conversation last night. We were talking about a friend of ours going through a similar deal with their kid, and like I couldn't do it, man. You know, if my son is 19 years old and he's on fentanyl, I'm going to do anything I can to rip fentanyl out of his hand, because it's just one use he's going to, and I know that's the wrong answer, right? I know it is. I know that we have to let him fall. But the stuff that's out there today, and my dad used to say this when I was a kid, oh man, the stuff you're messing with today, it ain't like what we had. But it's serious now. Like, you know,
what your dad was talking about was like 2% THC versus 37.
Yeah.
We're talking about, I know crackheads that have smoked crack for 40 years. They'll probably outlive me.
Yeah.
I know heroin addicts that had slammed heroin for 60 years and they lived forever. You put fentanyl in somebody's hand. I think what I saw was that the average person who starts using fentanyl has a 3-month life expectancy.
Golly, that's crazy.
3 months.
Yeah, that's wild.
And that's like, we're talking about like, people are picking up fentanyl and within months they're using grams a day.
Yeah.
And all it takes is like one batch that isn't cut as much or whatever. It doesn't matter how big your tolerance is. You get exposed to the right amount. It's going to take your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're just, you don't know who's mixing it, where they're mixing it, how they're mixing it.
No.
Yeah.
And the sad part is my experience with fentanyl. So fentanyl kind of hit the streets, and that was like right about the time when I was like clocking out of being in the streets anymore. Right. And, the whole thing about it was like when somebody would overdose and die, everybody would start going to that dealer because they wanted the better shit. Right. And it was like the logic behind that. Yeah. And so I knew dealers.
I understand it. But
so do I.
It's crazy.
But the logic behind it was like, oh, I got good shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
it's terrifying.
Terrifying.
So that's what, you know, those conversations with the family, and I love working with families. But those conversations are always the hardest, you know, especially with the young guys. And then, you have, I have those examples of those 19-year-olds. I got one right now that's at, he's in college. He's a chaplain in his fraternity, and all he's in a fraternity and all the kids are getting drunk and they're coming up to him like, hey bro, like, how are you not getting in all this stuff? And their parents are coming up to his parents and being like, man, thank you so much for your son. And this kid was in high school when I started messing with him, hopeless, right? And in my mind, he was actually getting kicked out. And I'm like, no, let me have him. Like, those are the ones I want. I want the ones that no one else wants.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's kind of like, it's a little manipulation on my part, because a lot of times those ones that no one else wants are the easiest to flip.
Yeah.
You know, everybody looks at him as a problem, but man, I see right through him. I am that person. You know,
I am that person too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The ones that and it is, I guess, when you can meet them eye level and, just see them, man. A lot of times, man, they just want to be seen. You know, and you get them in front of you, and I'm never the guy that tells you what to do. I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to give you some options, right? And you can make a decision, because if I'm telling you, hey, dude, you do this and you're going to be okay. I'm going to say, you could do this or you could do this. You can do whatever you want, right? It's just like my brother's going to prison right now, and I just talked to him. I said, hey, man, you know, when you get out here, like, I haven't seen him since I got sober. And I'm like, man, I have resources. So I can get you in anywhere in the country, like anywhere you want to go if you want something different for your life. But if you don't, that's fine too, right? That's cool too. Find that bottom and I'll be standing right there, you know? But until you get there, like, don't use me.
Dude, it's such a scary thing, right? Because, like, I don't know what he's using or what his deal is.
It's banging dope. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a scary thing. But we just dealt with a kid. He's 25. And parents are well off, right? And willing to pay for whatever, historically, has like just dumped money into treatment. And you see this all the time where like parents are taking second and third mortgages out to send their kids to treatment, because treatment isn't cheap. If you don't got the right insurance or whatever, it's like your options are You can go to, which my opinion is, send them to the state funded place where they have a year-long program. That's the best treatment that I ever got.
Yeah.
The best treatment episodes that I ever participated in were long-term, state-funded work therapy Bible camps.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't what they were doing, it was the amount of exposure and the amount of time that I could put together in there. Because 28 days isn't scratching the surface.
No, it ain't even. I left in 27 days. I was looking for dope.
Yeah.
I FaceTimed a guy, and I was going through my closet, and there was stuff all in my closet. And I'm like trying to hide acid outside of the deal. No one can see if I take that. And he's like, hey, bro, I saw that. I'm like, yeah. 28 days, man. And I would tell people I can get recovery in a dumpster, you know, because I had felonies that were over my head, you know, which thank God I did. You know, if I didn't have those felonies, I would have got high in that closet.
Dude, I think one of the most effective deterrents is time.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I know plenty of people that they owe their recovery to a judge.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
100%. Yeah.
I'm one of them.
Me.
Yeah.
I was driving from Katy to Conroe 3 times a week to take a drug test. 3 times for a year, 3 times a week.
That'll keep you clean.
Oh, man, I hated that drive, dude. But yeah, and I got, you know, somehow they let me off of probation 2 years early too, you know, like, and a guy that shouldn't have been on probation. I at 1 year, I wrote the judge and I'm like, hey man, you know, I'm LCDC, I'm doing all this. He calls me into his chambers. It was like a weekday. And I go in there, he said, look, he said, you look around that drug court. He's like, you don't belong. Like, you should be in prison. He's like, let's give it another year. Like, you're doing great. I'm really proud of you. He's like, but like, I put my neck on the line for you, and we're going to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And he sent me his friends' kids since then. Like, you know, we had a good relationship before. I knew this judge before I went in front of him. So, you know, he sent his kids or his friends' kids since then. So, yeah, man, thank God. If it wasn't for him standing in the gap for me there, like at court, because he recused himself from the case because I knew him, and then he picked it back up because they were fixing to like throw me away, and I don't know what happened behind the scenes there, but I know that God was looking out for me because I'm not looking at my kid through glass right now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and I'm very grateful. And it hasn't. I don't. There's not a day that goes by, I don't think, that I'm one decision away from never seeing my kid again.
That's the fragility of the situation that we're in. It is one bad decision.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how good I've been doing for the last 5 years. None of that matters. One bad decision and I lose. I'm not a father anymore. And that's not okay with me. You know, it was always okay. For me, I think a weird shift in me was it was okay when I was paying the consequences. I didn't care. Like, I figured that I would die in prison, period. Like, this is just where I'm going to end up. And that was okay with me. I didn't have to worry about nothing. Man, it was fine. You just play some cards, get high whenever you want to, just chill, you know? But it wasn't me paying those consequences. It's not just me paying those consequences. And Nikki paying those consequences was one thing, but she was making decisions. But this kid that we fought to have. I mean, and because in the back of my mind, the whole 5 years, 6 years, we're trying to have this kid is like, this is going to fix me. This is my next big plan.
I think she said like the same type of thing.
Yeah. It was like, okay, I can't put it together. I don't have a good reason to, right? I don't have a sufficient reason to quit. Give me a son. And I got that son, man. And I had everything, all these reasons that I had when I was younger. I had the money, I had the businesses, had the wife, had the house, had the toys. Now I had the son. I had it all now. Right. And it wasn't enough, man.
Yeah.
And I just remember coming home and I got sober. Probably my son was maybe a little over a year old, but like coming in and it's like he knew, you know, and I'm like, and he's just a baby, dude. And he's like, the way he would look at me and I just go off to the garage, you know, I would, man, dude, I remember one night I was trying to watch him, or I was supposed to watch my son, and I'm in the living room and he's in the living room. We got like Coco Melon on or something, and I'm like, man, I just go to that garage for a second. I'm gonna come right back. I'm gonna be in here. It's good. So I take off to the garage. I convince myself I'm gonna be a better father, right? I'm gonna be present when I get back in here. And I went to the garage and like, I don't know, 2 hours later, my wife comes home and she's like, hey dude, Coop's got shit all over him in the living room. What's going on? And I'm like, oh, bro. And it's just like, you know, I don't want to do that, bro. That's like the lowest moment of my using. right there, lower than anything else. That moment, and it wasn't enough then, right? It was like, oh man, I better do some more because I feel terrible about it, you know. So I think that was like the final piece was understanding, like, man, this kid didn't ask for me to be his father, right?
Yeah. You got what you wanted, and now you're just gonna shit on him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go all the way back now.
Okay.
Like, tell me about just your childhood and start from there.
Okay. Well, I was conceived on the banks of the Guadalupe River in a tent, and then
and they weren't just camping, right?
Yeah, they were partying.
Okay.
And my mother, she was just kind of getting started. She had been partying, but she hadn't gotten to all the heavy stuff yet. My dad was a meth cook for the Bandidos.
Oh boy.
So they got married while she was pregnant. They were divorced. I don't even know if I might have just been born. They didn't make it very long. I lived with my grandparents mostly in the beginning. My mom, she was getting started off on crack. She was she might have already been doing it, but I think she was cocaine and partying and that kind of thing. And then it got darker. And she was never really around. I ended up going to live with my dad when I was like 6, and it was just me and my dad, and you know, the Bandido lifestyle. It was wild.
Okay.
So, and you know, he was a dope cook, so there'd always be dope in the house. And he would always tell me, like, he's like, you know, we don't do drugs, man. We're not racist. Like he was putting good values in me, right? And I remember one day finding this dope, and it all came tumbling down,
crashing down.
I'm like, man, dude, like, and that didn't really get me started, but it started with like, man, I don't trust anything these people are telling me, you know. So yeah, and I told you a little bit earlier about like defining moment. So in school, I did really good, man. I was in the advanced classes, and I would like take up for those kids, you know. I always had that, you know, don't pick on anybody weaker. Like I would always take up for those kids. And then that stuff happens in 7th grade, man. And I had already smoked weed a couple times. You know, I found it, you know, my dad's stuff, and I'd smoke it. But yeah, when that happened, it was just like before school, I'm hitting up that store. You know, every school's got that store right across the street, and we're smoking weed, you know, and it spiraled out pretty fast, as fast as it could with my budget, right? But even at like 13, 14, I had jobs, multiple jobs. We started a lawn mowing business, and I'm just like paying for my dope, right? I'm the kid that's paying for the drugs because none of the other kids have money. Yeah. Right? So I'm out there hustling and doing that.
Where'd you grow up?
Pasadena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Houston. But yeah, so yeah, I get kicked out of school a whole bunch. We get kicked out for gang activity. We had a little group, we called us 420 crew. And we were getting fights with all the local gangsters around. It was just kind of for protection in our neighborhood. You know what I mean? So yeah, I get kicked out of school. I think when I was 16, I graduated, or 17 from like a Parkview Baptist Home School. There's lawsuits to this day against that school because the diplomas don't hold up. So I tried to go to the military, like maybe I was 17 or 18, and they didn't take that diploma, so I had to go get a GED too. But yeah, they and I was repoing. I was like out of the house. I was out of the house when I was probably 15, you know, like almost full time. Every now and then I come and fill up with some food or something, but I'm gone, right?
Yeah, crash for a couple of days.
Get yelled at. What are you doing with your life? You know, that kind of stuff. My dad was in recovery. He got I don't remember how old I was, but he got a assault case. It was a pretty bad one. He beat this guy up with steel-toe boots, and he had to get sober. So during this time, he was sober, AA sober. And he's like, you know, taking me to meetings and all this. And I'm getting high with the kids in AA. I mean, I'll never take my son to an AA meeting because I partied more at AA meetings than anywhere when I was a kid. But yeah, so I started getting in a lot of trouble. The cases started coming pretty fast. I don't like when I asked Nikki's dad to marry her, they looked me up and I had like 35 convictions. and he still gave me his blessing, so that was cool. But yeah, it was like one thing after another. Like when I'm using, I'm not functional. I'm like Nikki would be very functional, right? She can get high and maintain. As soon as I get high, everybody knows. Everybody's sounding the alarm. I got people showing up at the house because they know, like, I'm going to go to jail. Like, that's where I end up. I'm not going to die. I might die. I'm not going to kill anybody, but I'm going to jail for sure. So, started getting DWIs. Went to SafeP. You know what that is? SafeP is a behavior modification program. Yeah, it's there's pull-ups. You ever heard of those?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Pull up on your trafficking, trading, that kind of thing.
So I went to one of the original therapeutic communities. Yeah. That was like Synanon. But like Synanon came around in like the 60s, and the place that I went was like the early 70s. So, and it was all modeled off that. And so like I was part of like the original pull-up culture.
That's you piloted this thing for me, man. That sucks.
Yeah,
dude. Because that program.
Well, they did, dude. The program that I actually talk about it in the Scott episode. Scott, he's like the first episode, I think.
Okay.
Scott went to a different one where somebody went to the program that I was at, and he basically ripped their entire playbook and started one in Colorado.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he went to like that one, and so the language is the same, like. Now there's like some original shit that was like, did you guys have barbers and like haircuts and like, okay, so yeah, like
tickets, confrontation circles, all that.
Oh yeah, games. Did you do games?
I don't know. We did reflection circles, squares. We did.
So games were where everybody sits in a room. You're not allowed to get up. There's no violence. You could say whatever. Like people were making shit up about people, and then they would like get a reaction out of somebody, and then the whole room would like turn against them. And people are lying, like making shit up, like accusing them of just some crazy shit just to get like a rise out of them. And then after the games were done, people are like taking notes of like what's going on and what's being said. And then after the game is done, you get pulled into the bench, and now you're going and getting grilled about like all these lies that everybody.
So they did something like that. They would come in and fish. So when I tell you I manipulated this thing, it was crazy. So my counselor said that I reminded her of her son who passed away from an overdose.
Oh man!
So
kick that door wide open.
And I was in the kitchen. I was working in the kitchen, and I got into it with like the sergeant in the kitchen, and I like wrote what I forget what they call. You write up the staff there, and I sent. Golly, I can't think of the name. Anyway, I shot it off, and I bypassed I sent it like home. I didn't send it so it'd be handled internally. I sent it home so they would send it to the state. And it got back, the lady come in there and she laid me in as the accountant for the pod. So all the write-ups I got. So, I mean, everything that went through there, I got. So at nighttime, when we have our meetings, I say, look, they're going to come in here and circle us up, and they're going to go fishing. If you tell them that you're negative contracting, we will go on Tight House.
Oh, wow. You guys got like the whole, contracting up and like doing the whole, where everybody's like co-signing bullshit.
Yeah, negative contracting. Yeah. So when they come in here, even if we have to sit for 12 hours, nobody say anything because we have enough tickets. I'm the accountant. If we don't have enough, I'm writing them, right? And I'll confront it too, even though it never happened. I tell them, look, even if this didn't happen, you're getting confronted, just take it. Say, whatever. And we made it through the whole thing without being on Tight House at all. And what good did that do me, right? But really it was, I don't know, man. I don't see the good. I can't think of the good in that program. It was crazy, man. I mean, I don't know.
One of the things that Mimi, who is like the lady, everybody calls her like the lady, her and her husband started it. Her husband passed away, but she's still running it like to this day. She's been running it for like 50 or 60 years, something like that. Like they like named a day after her in California. Like it's like this big deal.
They must. I mean, it must have a lot of success there. Maybe.
So what they do, their like real thing is like people who are facing life sentences or people who are coming out of life sentences, they send them there.
Oh, okay.
Like that's how I was facing 33 years. That was the deal. The max exposure was like 86 years. The deal was 33.
Yeah.
And got to go to this program.
Yeah.
And
oh, you love that program then.
Dude, it was like, but I was walking on 8 because you can get in trouble for anything.
Yeah.
And like things that you're not even supposed to be able to get in trouble.
Back to jail.
Yeah, if you get kicked out of there, like, oh yeah,
you're out of there.
My whole thing was like, the judge told me, he was like, look, I've sent I don't know how many people over there, and none of them made it. And if you F this up, I will lock you up for the rest of your life. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I've been doing whatever.
Challenge accepted. That was what I thought, like in my head. Because really, the deal that I signed for was I was going to take 2 strikes. They were going to hang a strike, and they take strikes serious in California. So there were 2 separate, different strikes. So those counted, and they were going to hang. They hung a strike over my head that was completely different. And they were like, "You're going to take this 10 on the chin, but we're going to try to strike you out and give you 25 to life. If you fuck this up, you're going to prison forever."
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to do what I got to do, you know?
That'll get you to walk straight for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hang those kind of consequences over anybody's head and they'll do the right thing.
Well, so I've looked up, because my like secret desire is to overtake SafeP. I want like Story to be where SafeP is.
Okay.
I hate that program. I don't hate anything, but I think that the program is insane. So the stats on it, I looked it up. The recidivism rate for if you go to SafeP is 47%. If you go to regular prison, it's lower. The recidivism is lower.
What?
And this is their transformational units, right? This is where you send your people, your bad actors, and they're gonna get out of there and be right. 46%, 47%. They get $50 million a year from the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. Now, and you might as well just send them to prison. Right? What are we doing? Actually, it might be better because it is kind of like a slap on the wrist. You know, you got to go through big boy prisons to get there, but you don't get in like general population or anything like that. Mm-hmm. You know, you're in there and you hear them screaming and messing with you, and it puts a little fear in your little 19-year-old self. But, you know, maybe they need to go there and fight a little bit or do something. I don't know.
I grew up the most in prison. Like, that's where I like really started to like kind of put shit together around like being a man.
You've done a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've done 9 years. 9 years. So, I mean, it's more than like the average person that's walking down the street, but I know people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, it's a bit of time. But those are like some of the most important lessons that I ever had. Yeah, but like inside of the prisons, the stuff that they're like the groups and stuff, the things that they're taking you to, they're all in Texas. They were either you can't understand them, they're because their accent you couldn't understand the teachers, whoever it was, or they were just so old you couldn't hear them. It's either like you got 80-year-old ladies in there, God bless them, like they're coming in there, they want to do good and help, but you can't hear nothing. And you know, everybody's going in prison. You go to those classes so you can trade stuff. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So you got to get something to the next yard, and that's the only place to do it. Yeah. California, the CDC became the CDCR. They tacked on rehabilitation. Yeah. So the California Department of Corrections became the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And what it did was expanded their annual budget. Yeah. The prison system got worse. Probably. It like amplified a lot of problems. Yeah. That's wild. Mm-hmm. Because no one really, I don't know, man. No one really wants change, especially when you get way up there. Like it's all working. Everybody's getting their pockets padded. You know, especially like the private prison stuff. The private prison stuff is pretty insane. Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you ever heard that rumor that Michael Jordan owns the prison that houses the people that killed his dad? It's a rumor. It's not actually true. That'd be cool. But he did own prisons. Yeah. You know, like you're talking about like this guy is, first of all, like an A-list celebrity, but also like one of the best that ever did it. And what did he do with his money? He bought into the private prison system. Yeah, you're making good money too. Yeah. The returns are there. Heck yeah. Yeah. And it's wild. So in Texas, I don't know. So there's TDC and then you have like your CCAs or whatever, they're private prisons. And the quality, the drop in quality, like going to these other units is crazy. Really? Well, I haven't been, apparently there's probably some nice ones, but I went to Mineral Wells. It was absolutely terrible. It wasn't just like the facility. It was the food that you were eating was way worse than actual TDC food. Okay. And the people that they hire, it was like they
they don't make any money, right? You got to be there like $10 an hour. You're out there guarding. At Mineral Wells, we would lock the guards in the picket. So they would be in the picket and we would like jam stuff between the hallway wall and the door, lock them in there, and people would come throw stuff over the fence.
So the California prison system, the way that they ended up doing they would contract prisons, but everybody wanted to go to those prisons because they were so much nicer. The food was better. You can get TVs, like real TV, like real size TVs, Xboxes, PlayStations, like
that's crazy. You know, everybody gets iPads now, I guess, or they get tablets in prison.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I don't know if they like they issue them or whatever, but I'm like everybody gets them.
Yeah, everybody would have to, otherwise they'd be fighting.
Yeah, it'd be
all the time.
Fucking nightmare.
It'd be insane. Mm-hmm. So everybody would have to. I know they have them. My buddy Lewis, they do. They broadcast on the app. So they go through all the prisons. They have, I don't know who, I think Eyes on Me has the app, and they put like teachings on the app and they put it through the prison. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So in the California system, they were like, when they first implemented the whole tablet thing, they put a bunch of safety measures like in place, like on the actual devices, so that, like you couldn't access the internet, you couldn't like do all that stuff, and it was like very selective about like the kind of things that you had access to. But talking about people in high level prisons, they're gonna figure out how to get around that.
The smartest people. I mean, I've seen subwoofers built out of cracker boxes. So come on, you know they can do anything in there. Yeah. All they got is time. They take that thing all the way apart and figure it out. Yeah.
I mean, they have access to like literature. I know people are like getting schematics for just the randomest shit, and it was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "Yeah, building a time machine." Yeah, like what? He's like, "No, I just don't want to talk about
it." Yeah, it's crazy in there, man. I'm glad. Yeah, I was going to see my little brother in jail, and just out of habit, looked to see if I had a warrant. And it said I had some weird stuff on the toll road. This was like a week ago. I'm like, dude, in the past, I'm like, dude, I'll just go in there and take a nap for a couple of days. It's fine, dude. I don't mind it at all. Now I'm like, dude, there's no way I'm going
Wait a minute.
there, dude.
The toll road?
Yeah, I don't think it is anything. I should have already called them. But it was the Fort Bend toll road, and it just said judgment open. It was in August. I'm like, well, I don't even know what that is, so I have no idea.
Dude, my wife is the fucking worst. She just, like, it isn't like, it's like, dude, just tell me when you run out of, like, your money and I'll put more on there. She doesn't even tell me. I just get I get letter after letter after letter where it's like, you ran this, you did this, and like you owe this amount of money. And I keep reading, like, at first I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, and then it got up to like hundreds of dollars, and I was like, I wonder what the consequence is. And like right there on the letter, it says like, first step, we'll take your license. Second step is we'll tow your car. Third step, you're going to jail. And I'm like, dude, why do you keep doing this? She's like, they're not going to lock me up over non-paid tickets. I'm like, yeah, I think they will.
I don't know. I think it's different. I don't know. I know Fort Bend County is like owned by Fort Bend, but I don't think all these other roads are owned by. I don't know. I don't know how it all works out, but yeah.
Well, I kind of like started looking into it, and like the Big Beltway right now.
Yeah, 99.
Yeah. Okay. So the 99, they made it a toll road to pay for it, but that's been paid for like 15 years.
Yeah, they did that with it. When I was a kid, they built Beltway 8, the smaller one, and they were like on the news. They're like, hey, we're going to pay for this thing and we're going to get rid of these toll booths, and they've just gone up since. They were fighting over a $750 million surplus in Houston. And it was just extra money that they're fighting for. Like, who's going to get it? The city, the county, the whatever. They're fighting for it down there.
That's so crazy. Yeah. Have you seen this thing that they're doing? They're the city of Houston just they're distributing a bunch of money around a center off Enterprise where they're going to build like a homeless center, basically. Dude, it's actually really cool. And right now they're looking for
where's that at?
Off Enterprise.
Okay.
No. Emancipation.
Okay.
Enterprise. Is there an Enterprise?
I have no idea. I don't even know where Emancipation is. I'm
like downtown.
Oh, okay.
Downtown. It's like you know where the stadiums are?
Yeah.
Okay, you know where the freeway is right next to it? It's like south of the freeway. But they're looking for people to run it. They're looking for like who's going to run the mental health, who's going to run the SUD, who's going to run like all the different auxiliaries of it.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool, like what they're doing with it. I mean, if that's part of the 750 million, that's cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I mean, it's like $120 million project.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The thing that I'm like, I'm from San Diego. There's a homeless problem there.
Yeah.
And they're not. Have you seen this $24 billion scandal that's going on over there?
No, I might have heard a little bit. They they approved a big budget and nothing's happened.
No,
the money's gone or something. Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And there was like 32,000 homeless people in California at the beginning of it. There's 168,000 now. They dumped $24 billion into a problem and they quadrupled the problem.
I think as soon as you become a politician at that level, they just tell you how to make money. Like, look, this is what we're going to do, make this. And
Yeah.
I think that's all it is.
I mean, like, yeah, that's so much money.
It's a lot of money.
I just saw this thing the other day where it was like, it showed $1 million compared to $1 billion.
Yeah.
Like on pallets.
Yeah, I saw that.
Dude, I was like, that's crazy.
Big difference.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, you could definitely put a dent in that homeless population with $24 billion.
Dude, well, they did that like up front before they put the package together. They asked like a bunch of questions, like as like a premise for doing this. And one of them was like, how much money would it actually cost to like give every single homeless person a home for a year and like X amount of dollars? And it was like $1.6 billion to like completely take every homeless person off the streets and give them money.
Yeah, where's the money?
And so one of the stories was like this company. So they created the package. Immediately, NGOs started popping up. So they got awarded the money and now they're distributing it. And then people are like creating companies and like 501c3s.
Yeah.
This one contract was awarded for $20 million. They were going to get $20 million over the span of 4 years. They got 5 up front and then 5 every year after that. And then they had to like do like a bunch of assessments or whatever at the end. They give them all the money, and now they're like looking at the assessments. They never even broke ground on the project, and they got all the money,
and no one's going to jail.
No, because they created an entity. You know, it's like you have complete protection. Yeah, the entity might get, they're going to shut it down, but where'd all the money go?
That's crazy.
That's not a lot. That's not like billions of dollars. $20 million is a shitload of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
yeah, but it happens so much. You know, like with all the misspending of the government, that drives me insane. I hate paying taxes because I know they're going to mismanage money, period. It doesn't matter what money you give them, they're going to mismanage it. They're going to send it for some shit that we don't care about.
Yeah.
Like the everyday American, like from my point of view, is hurting right now, right? And we're sending all this money to other places. It's like, look, why don't we focus on home for a little bit?
You know what's crazy about like sending money to other places? You know, like when we get paid even, it's like numbers in a computer screen go to a different account that's just numbers on a computer screen.
Yeah.
When they send money like overseas, they're sending pallets of cash.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It isn't like fake money like what we kind of operate with. This is like they're sending hard paper cash over there.
It's wild.
Billions of it.
Yeah.
Like annually. Billions of it.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle it is. They're all
I think they've all been to Epstein's Island, honestly.
We're about to find out, I think.
I think every one of them has.
Yeah, I'm about to find out.
Yeah, there might be like 2 of them in that whole Congress that hadn't been. And they're new.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They weren't even there yet.
Yeah,
but
it's wild.
Okay, let's go back.
SafeP.
Let's go before that. Where did the sexual abuse happen?
A stepbrother when I was younger.
Okay. How old were you?
4, 5.
Okay.
5, 6. Probably from then to about 9.
Okay, so it was a ongoing thing.
Yeah. And females, very weirdly, but like my babysitters, when I was a kid, they were teenage girls, and I was probably like 7, but I was always like, all that stuff messed me up in a sense that like it's hard for me to have like a friendly relationship with a woman, and not because I'm trying to hit it, is because I'm always like, man, dude, is there like some ulterior motives here? Or whatever? Yeah, it's weird, man. So I just don't do it, right? I don't think
it's that weird. I don't think that men are biologically geared to have like girl friends.
Yeah,
friends that are girls.
Yeah, no,
it's just it isn't. I always think it's funny, like when I hear like somebody be like, "Oh yeah, I got like all these friends that are girls." I'm like, you're a sneaky motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, because you're waiting for that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ain't going to
Open
say
that door.
You're not going to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and that's and it's really important to me to like, man, to respect my wife too. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
a whole, yeah,
that's a whole different deal. But really, like I've even going through all of my bullshit, like that's always been really important to me.
Yeah.
Because I want that from her. You know, I'll do everything except that. Right? I'm not going to cross that line. Like I made this commitment. So yeah. Anyways, yeah. So I was young.
Okay.
When all that happened. Yeah, probably up to about 10 or 11, somewhere in there.
Okay, so this was ongoing, multiple people.
Multiple people.
Okay. And 12 is where that incident happened with the teeth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so from there, like how long was it between the tooth thing and going to your first, like getting arrested?
Probably 5 years. 17 was my first arrest. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I get brought home by like as a runaway. But that wasn't really a arrest.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, going to jail. I remember when at 16, I tried to turn myself in because we all went car hopping one night, and 2 of my friends were 17 and they got arrested. So I went down to Pasadena City Jail. I'm like, hey man, I want to admit to a crime I did, and they're like, go home.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
What was the thought process behind that?
I don't know, man. My buddies were in there, and I didn't get arrested. I didn't get in trouble, and they did. And I was like, man, dude.
Were you like at the scene when they got arrested and let go? Oh, okay.
No, they came. I made it home. I just kept running. You know, I made it home. So they didn't. But yeah, I went to turn myself in the next day. They just sent me home. Yeah, and it was so, like, I would get pulled over for, like, the dumbest thing. Like, my brights were on, and I had a beer. You know, like, my first DWI was really like that. I had, like, 2 beers. And like they always say in cops, and get arrested, and I mean, that was it. I failed my
Field sobriety.
Field sobriety. That was my first DWI. And I was so young that I'm just like, yeah, dude, take the charge. Well, whatever, dude. You're going to let me out right now? Yeah, time served. Let's go. And that's how I did all my little charges. All of them I did. I mean, I'm guilty of every charge that I've ever had.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I'd try to negotiate and get out of there, you know, as fast as possible. Most of the time I didn't have any money. You know, I didn't really have any money until this last time. And then it was like, break the bank. Whatever I got to spend to stay out of prison. Didn't matter. The attorney was like $50,000, you know? And he didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do shit. I mean, I was pretty disappointed. I wish I had that money back. But yeah, so there's a lot of that. And then my MO was like, I would work. I'd be out of town working, and I'd always get a responsible woman that could maintain the house and make sure like she had a job, and like, look, your money goes to the bills and mine goes to everything else that we do. You know, so I could live that party lifestyle. And it went on until eventually I went to SafeP, and I was in a relationship at a time. And I always like telling this story because when I got out, I was a shoe guy. I mean, Jordans. I love Jordans. I had big old Rubbermaid tubs full of them. And I get out of prison or SafeP. We won't call that prison. And I get to my uncle's house, and there's 2 big old bins full of shoes. I start pulling them out, and there's one of each pair. So she burned the left or the right of every shoe, dude. So yeah, needless to say, we were done. I think we moved on while I was in prison, but yeah. So, and that was a cycle. So I would get arrested, and then that would sober me up for a couple days, and then I'd get out of there and I'd be like, look, man, I gotta be good for this. I gotta get past this case now. Let me do this, and then I can get back to it. Right? Then I can get back to it. And I would try to do that. So there's a lot of white-knuckling, a lot of barely passing piss tests, a lot of drinking water and Clorox and whatever else would tell me I could clean my system out, you know, for 20 years of that, you know, and the occasional I did 11.
The dangerous shit we would do to try to get around.
I'll drink whatever you had, dude.
So
you telling me it's going to be clean? I'll drink it. We'll try it one time. And then I'm not going to ever drink that. And I go home and drink it, try it. But yeah, it was, and yeah, it was just chaos, constant turmoil. And I think that turmoil, that feeling, that constant like unease, I think I was addicted to that. I think
Oh, yeah.
more than anything, it's like that feeling of shit ain't right, you know?
I tell people all the time, like the hardest thing to kick, drugs and alcohol are easy to stop doing. Like that's like one of the easy parts of recovery.
Yeah.
The real hard parts is like when you have to like start to dissect your lifestyle and cut people off and stop doing things. And like,
Yeah.
like I feel like, getting clean is the easy part. Staying clean is the hard part.
Yeah. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. There was the saying in my house was day one. So Nikki, she would never really try to detox, but I would every other week, I'm like, look, day one. And I'd suffer for maybe 48 hours and I'd get high again, dude. But yeah, that I would know and I would try and I would fail. I would know like, okay, I couldn't see anybody. I couldn't go out into the public because if people saw me, I mean, when I got sober this time, I was walking around at 145 pounds. I was nothing.
How tall are you?
5'10".
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and right now I'm like 185. So, yeah, I mean, I came in with a mullet too. Oh, busted mullet. It got arrested. I look like I came straight out of a meth trailer, man. And,
You got the picture?
yeah, I do actually. I keep this thing on me. It's my, it's that first probation picture they give you in your like ID card.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Oh my gosh.
Looking good. Dude, that mullet fanned it out.
Oh yeah, they got to see this.
Oh yeah, show them.
There it goes. That is a serious party in the back.
Yeah. We there's a famous. I say famous, but all of our friends have seen it. We in the middle of this relapse, we went to Islamorada, Florida. And we had Nikki wanted to have pictures taken. We had our son with us, and she took too long. And I eat probably 5 Xanax while she's getting ready, and I'm drinking Crown. So we get out there to take this picture, and I look like that emoji that has his face all messed up, and I look exactly like that emoji. And I'm sitting. It's his family photo. It's terrible. It's got the mullet. Yeah, it's so bad.
So funny.
Yeah, we didn't know what that picture looked like, and the guy sent it. We had a professional photographer, and he sends us his stuff. And Nikki's pissed, of course.
Of course.
But yeah,
It's funny as fuck now, though.
yeah.
That's funny. Okay, anyway, let's go back. So, teenager, it was just a bunch of, like, getting arrested and, like...
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was on the pipeline a lot, so I was doing X-ray, so I'd be out of town every week, living that lifestyle, which is a wild lifestyle.
Oh yeah,
the pipeline lifestyle is pretty wild. And I come home and I'm like, it's really 20 years of me trying to hold it together, knowing that I shouldn't be doing this stuff and not being able to do so. Mm-hmm. Right, and it's always with the threat of prison over my head, mm-hmm. or violating probation or whatever it is. So I try to walk the line and I can't, and I'm manipulating to where like, okay, I got to take 2 drug tests a month. Well, if you hit me both in the beginning of the month, then I could get high for the end of the month. And then what that would always end up doing is me almost failing a drug test that next month because I'm drinking whatever I can to try to, and this is like 20 years worth of this. Like this isn't
so
like
stressful.
Yeah. And in it, I'm like, every time I'm doing it, I'm like, I'm not doing this again, man. This sucks. I'm not drinking this much water. I'm not peeing this much again. I'm not doing this shit again. And then sure enough, I wouldn't even think about it until you hit me with those 2 drug tests right at the beginning of the month. And I'm like, boop, there comes the idea. Right. And I would do it every time. Right. It wasn't like, sometimes I would say I didn't, but I was still doing it, you know? And I barely, so all of that kind of ends up with my last relapse, man. Okay. And that would be, I got 5 years probation for my 5th DWI. I'd already been to prison behind DWIs. So somehow I got a 5 years probation for my 5th DWI.
I heard in Texas they have misdemeanor DUIs.
2, yeah, you get 2. So okay. Your first 2 are misdemeanors and your 3rd one's a felony. So yeah, on my 5th DWI. So I ended up doing 8 years probation for on the 5 they extended me. I had the breathalyzer on my truck for 8 years. But I can take or leave alcohol, man. Mm-hmm. But I need some Xanax. I need smoke some weed. So I can do any of that and use the breathalyzer. So I I hit one of my little runs, and it was probably about 4 days long. And at the end of it, I'm like going to cop some dope, and I'd been up, and I just fell asleep, and I get in this wreck, and like I pull over, the lady pulls over, and I'm like, well, I can't pull over. I bounce. Mm-hmm. And then I go up north of Conroe to Willis, and I get in another wreck on the bridge. And I hit this lady, and I had $2,000 in my pocket. I was going to buy cocaine. And I, like, a dude comes up to my window. He's like, I saw you swerving on the road. Wait here for the police. And I like I remember picking up my breathalyzer. Like, I'm sober. What are you talking about? So I got out of the truck, and I went up to that lady, and I was like, hey man, I got $2,000 cash right now. You just drive away. And she's like, all right. I give her the $2,000. I get back in my truck. I fuck off through this neighborhood, go back to the bank, pull cash, go get coke. Right. And just keep going. And so I ran like, for maybe like a year. I didn't think anything of that whole day. Mm-hmm. And then a friend of mine's wife's a paralegal, and she said, hey man, like, you have a warrant. And I'm like, for what? And she said it was for hit and run. Mm-hmm. So they end up arresting me, no bonding me, like 4 times. I keep trying to get a bond. They're no bonding me. They're going to send me to prison behind it. Mm-hmm. And the same judge kind of looked out for me then too. And then the judge that no bonded me, his son was actually, like, I worked with him. So it came full circle. It was great. Right. So, anyways, yeah. So they end up extending me 3 years. So I end up doing 8 years. In that last few months, man, I barely made it off.
Like, by the seat of your pants.
Well, when I went in, she goes, hey, we're gonna unsuccessfly discharge you from probation. And I was like, what does that
mean?
I was like, what does that mean? Does that mean I have to, like, do more probation? She was like, no, you're off. But it's just, there's a note that says unsuccessful. I'm like, okay. Oh, unsuccessful it is. Let me get up out of here.
Wait, I don't got to check in no more?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't care what you make that thing say. So we had our son. So just the time frame of where we're at in my life. So we had our son probably 8 months before. Nikki went in postpartum real bad. And it was like, I'm trying to hold it together. My brother, like, introduces her to heroin during all this time. So I'm like trying to hold everything together, white-knuckling it, right, on probation, trying to get through this thing. And it doesn't end well, right? So I get off probation, and I remember, man, I tell this story all the time. I had accumulated all the best weed that I knew that I could get my hands on. The moon rocks, all this new stuff that I hadn't seen before. And I had it in my garage for when I got off probation. And I went home, and packed a blunt. Just as much as I could get in one, right? This is my freedom blunt. And I remember, like, I invited people over, like, hey, bro, I'm getting on probation. They're like, bro, it's Wednesday, dude. Like, we got a family and jobs. I'm like, well, fuck you. I guess I'm partying by myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the garage, and I light this thing, and I'm smoking it. And dude, it wasn't 10 minutes into it where I'm like, oh, this ain't going to be enough. I knew it right then. I was like, oh, this ain't going to be enough. And sure enough, I smoke as heavy as possible. Like, you can't smoke more than it's impossible. Like, everywhere I went, I was smoking. I was eating it. We had a business, so I'd eat the wax that we were using to vape. I'm just spoon feeding it, right? As much as you could possibly do. And then I go pick up one time, and the dude's like, hey man, I got Xanax. And I'm like, over with, right? So I buy him out of him, right? And then once I'm on that, then I play this game of finding the center, right? What I like. So I get real low on the Xanax, and I do a bunch of meth or crack or coke or something to bring me back up, just so I can get brought right back down. And I love that. Like, that is my
trying to find the balance,
trying to find where you never find it. Mm-mm. You get real close, but you never quite find it.
Oh no, you pass it on the way back down, and you pass it on the way back up. But yeah, it's like by.
And that's how it was. And I don't like uppers. I love them when I'm out there. But like, if it's, I'll take Xanax. I'm not going to tweak. I can't do that. But I'll stay up for days if we're, like, having sex or something. Dude, like, that's what meth is, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was, it got really dark really fast. And when I say that, like, we had an unlimited amount of money. We had, we had people at our house watching our kid. We had all the makings of disaster, mm-hmm. right? The enabling, the money, all of it. And and we took a vacation to Florida for my birthday, and we missed 2 flights to
Was
get
this
there.
the picture?
Yes, this is where the picture happened. This was towards the end of it. And I mean, at the time, I have a cabinet company, we have the Delta 8 company, and we have the vape store, right? I don't know how it's like Nikki's getting high at the vape store, I'm managing the cabinet company, and like I'm missing it. I'm like, I put myself in a paint booth so I can isolate, right? So we go to Florida, and Florida got really bad. Those pictures, my aunt came down to hang out for a couple days. We ended up, my cousins come down, and it was a big fiasco. My cousin came down from Tampa to bring me dope. I'm like, just bring me everything you got, as much as you got, bring it down here. They show up, him and his friends get into a fight. So the cops come as soon as they show up to this house, and it's Nikki's dad's house. The neighbors call Nikki's dad. And Nikki says, and I'm like in the middle, I've been up for a couple of days. I'm in the middle of it, right? Over here on vacation, right? And Nikki's like, hey, my dad just got on a plane. He's on his way here. And I'm like, pack your shit. We're out of here, dude. So, we kick everybody out of the house. We pack up and go to Miami, and we're in Miami for probably 3 weeks. We got in some suite somewhere, and I detoxed twice in this hotel room. Nikki would go out, and they're like, and we had our son, man. Like we had our son, and dude, I mean, it's a miracle that he made it through it all. So we end up, Nikki fills up we had this SUV we rented. It was like an XL Yukon. She filled up the whole thing from the behind the driver's seat all the way to the back is stuff. Clothes. I bought speakers. We were buying all kind of weird shit. So we couldn't get on a plane. I had so much stuff. So Nikki passes out one time. We're in the car, and I just start driving to Texas. And she wakes up, and she's like, "Where are we at?" And I'm like, "We're on our way home." Like, and she starts freaking out. So we have to stop and get her shit. Had to go meet my cousin and get shit just to get home, right? And we get home. Man. We get home, and a couple weeks later, we didn't stop, of course. We get home, and Nikki's trying to go to treatment. I mean, her family is involved. Like, there's this picture. It's Nikki and my son and her dad, and they're on a golf cart. And Nikki's, like, holding it out like this. And she takes the picture, and you see, like, a side profile. She's looking at the phone with Cooper, and you see a side profile of her dad. And she's, like, 90 pounds. And she's got stores on her and stuff. And Cooper's smiling, and her dad's just somber driving that golf cart, man. And her family was all on us. So we were trying to get her into treatment. She was trying to find a place that she could take our son. And there's not many of those in the country that you could take a baby to.
Yep.
And
did you find one in California?
Yes, she went to one in Cali and ended up leaving after a couple days.
That's right. She talked about this.
Yeah.
My wife went to one in California.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. She wasn't ready at the time anyway, but she left after a couple of days. So, anyways, before she even goes to treatment, we're in this, like, I'm trying to get her to treatment. And she keeps putting it off, and I'm trying to get her to treatment. So one night, my dealer calls, and he goes, "Hey, man, I got some uncut kilos." And he's like, "Why don't you," he said, "for $27,000, never been cut." And I'm like, well, okay, that's crazy that you called me for that amount of drugs. I don't buy that. So I get off the phone. I'm like, this dude's trying to set me up. And Nikki's like, yeah, for sure, dude. Don't fuck with him anymore. And I'm like, yeah, cool. So the next day, I take some Xanax. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, this dude said he got some uncut shit. Let me call him. So I called him, end up going over there and I buy everything. Everything that he had. Because when I got busted, it was like 5 felonies. But it was, I go in there and I buy everything he had. I buy the Xanax, I buy meth, I buy coke, I buy all of it. Right. And then I leave and I go where Nikki was. Nikki and my son, they were at this girl's house, and I'm there and I'm like, look, I'm fixing to go home. I got this I'm fixing to go get high. I've already been up for a couple of days, but I'm fixing to send it. And, a crazy thing that would happen. So I leave. Nikki didn't come home with me. I'm like, well, I'm going home. So I bounce. And when I've been up for a long time, this is very weird. I always want to go to Walmart, right? And I don't steal. I shop. I'll go in Walmart and spend like $1,000. I'll buy the hammocks. Is something really weird when I've been up, because I don't know. I had a big collection of hammocks, And the sad one is first aid kits, because I remember like seeing first aid kits in Walmart or Kroger and being like, oh yeah, I'm a dad. Oh yeah, what do dads do?
Mm-hmm.
What do fathers do? They probably need a first aid kit. You know, I don't know, right? So I get those first aid kits. Anyways, I end up going to Walmart and I had this Louis Vuitton backpack, and I remember getting out of my truck and looking at that backpack and being like, I'm not leaving that in here. Like somebody's gonna steal my shit. Then it had full of dope, if to the brim. So I put it on and I go shopping through Walmart, and the Conroe Police Department surrounds me in there. And they arrest me. They go through my truck. They do all that.
Why'd they arrest you?
Possession, right?
Why did they approach you?
Dude, I was so out of it. I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't remember. I was like, I remember they grabbed me, and I'm like, I had this basket, and I'm like, hey man, I've been shopping. Let me get the basket. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, I want this basket. And they took me in the little loss prevention room or whatever. And the dude immediately opens my backpack. Like, I didn't give him any consent or anything like that. I do remember that. And then they go in my truck, and there wasn't really shit in my truck, but it was all in my backpack. I had it on me. So they end up going to that house too. So that I stopped at the house where Nikki was in between. So the dude set me up. They followed me over here, and then they got me in Walmart.
Wow.
Yeah. So, of course, they like call me in as soon as I get there, and they're like, how much you owe on that truck? I had this big dually. And I was like, I don't know, like 14,000 I owe on it or something. They're like, we're going to impound it. I'm like, well, keep it, dude. I want to go to sleep. Put me back in there. I want to go back to sleep. So they were trying to get me to snitch on somebody. And I'm like, look, y'all know who I bought this stuff from, because y'all came to this other house. Mm-hmm. Y'all don't think I know that? And anyway, so Nikki bonds me out. I was probably in there like 12 hours maybe. And Nikki, and the first thing I said when I get in the car is like, what dope do you have? Like, I need some drugs right now. End up going back to this dude's house. It's crazy. So I call him and I text him, and he's like, yeah, da, da, da. So I go, he's like, I'm not home right now. So I go by his house, and there's white SUVs in his driveway. So, I mean, but that's how wild. I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of connections then. Dude, I was just buying them all from this dude. So, anyways, I start, I guess, I went to treatment probably like a week later. Okay. So, I had a friend of mine come in my store, a vape store, and he was like, hey man, like if you don't go to treatment, you're fucked. Yeah. Like, you're going to be gone forever. And I'm like, oh yeah, dude, I know that. So I'm going to go to treatment to manipulate the court. Right. So that's what I did. And we ended up, I found, the Orchard last minute. That was a God thing. Because they let you have your phones, they let you do this, and I'm real important, you know, at 148 pounds strung out on meth, and I really need that phone because I got these businesses I need to take care of. You know, everything was kind of more important than the task at hand, right? Yeah. I need to make sure that I can have my creature comforts and I can, you know, all this typical shit, right? But it worked out, man. And we go there, and I went there, and it wasn't like, man, my whole life, from when everybody was telling me what I need to do, right? But if you do this, man, your life will really change. If you did this, if you followed these steps, if you could just do this, everything's going to be, and they always have these pointers where they didn't do that here, right? It was like, hey, just like I told you earlier, how I handle people. Like, you can do that. Yeah, bro. But there's also this, right? It's a decision, right? It was like, yeah, you know what but look, this is what life really looks like without it, right? It was that example that kind of pulling me with a vision, but not really, because I'm seeing the fruits in their life, right?
Yeah, but they're also giving you the option to make a decision. Yes. Versus like, you know, a lot of people end up in these situations and they are told, if you don't do it like this, you're doing it wrong and it's not going to work. Yeah. Versus like, so I met Dr. Shah, and he started telling me why. And I immediately was like, we could sell people on why all day. Yeah. It is nearly impossible to sell somebody like me on should. Yeah. Because I know I should have never done drugs. I probably should have gone to college. I should have done this. I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that. But that doesn't mean shit.
If you understand the why behind what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But why is like a really good motivator.
For sure.
Versus should.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big, I mean, the like story yourself and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about with Dr. Shaw, you're talking about a value shift rather than a behavior shift, right?
Yeah, it's the way that we talk about it is like we are reframing everything.
Yes.
Like the lens that you are looking through at all of these problems, we're going to give you a different one to look through and see what you think.
Yeah.
Right. And like, and this kind of started for me years ago.
That's
like,
why. That's exactly what the story is.
Yeah.
I mean, we give them a different pair of glasses, right? It's like, yes, that's true, but it's not only true.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the other part, right? Is like multiple things can be true at once. And if that is a fact that multiple things can be true at the same time, even if they're kind of conflicting, then the way that I always tell people this is like, I started looking at words that I was using and understanding like the effect that if I use this word. So what it came down to is I wrote down definitions and words and like started looking at like addict, recovery, coping, like everything that like applies to the direction that I was about to go. And I had to define it for myself.
Yeah.
Because if I had gone by their definitions, I would have been fucked. Right? Because when everybody thinks of like addict, there's like all this negative connotation. Right? And if I have to be an addict for the rest of my life, I need to think about it differently.
Yeah.
Or if like triggers and so I don't use triggers at all anymore. Cravings.
Yeah.
Like these are all just really good reasons to use.
Yeah.
Right. The reality is this is 100% my choice. And so for my personal recovery, I just don't use trigger or craving anymore.
Yeah.
Because when I crave pizza, I know I'm craving pizza. I know like what I can almost taste it. Like I can feel it in my body. When I crave drugs, really all it is like me obsessing.
Yeah.
And so they kind of correlate, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so if I had to go by like that definition of craving, I would have just been fucked. Triggers, I had to completely leave that behind too.
Yeah.
Because there was no trigger that, like traditional trigger, that could really justify the actions that I was taking. Like the reality was I wanted to use, and that's what I did.
For sure. Yeah. I've never liked the word trigger. Before I was a counselor, I didn't like that word trigger. And I try not to use it as a counselor. But I did have a counselor one time. I have the same stance on that word as you do. And he like broke down some chemical thing that happens in your brain. He's like, it's real and it happens. And I'm like, cool, man. I just don't like the word.
Yeah. Whatever. Well, it might happen for some people that way. It doesn't happen like that for me.
Yeah.
And so that's why I had to cut it out for me.
For sure.
Now we're professionals in the space, and when you look at like the criteria that they're using, they're actually saying they're asking you to ask them like, what are their trigger levels, what are their craving levels. So you have to like use this terminology.
Yeah.
If you're getting reimbursements, you have to use it.
Yeah.
But for me, walking around today, I have to not lean on those words anymore.
Yeah, on the paperwork when you're filling out stuff for those clients, it's the level of craving, you know, between a 1 and a 10.
And so like, how do you scale that? I mean, legitimately, I got a hold of my chart after I left treatment the last time, and I was reporting zeros.
Yeah.
No triggers.
Everybody always says 0.
You know, and it's like, I got a hold of it, and it was like 6, 7, and it was like, in my head, I was like, oh, that is fucked up. They like framed it to look weird.
Yeah.
And then I got into the industry, and I was like, oh, these are like ethical decisions moral decisions that people have to make. Because if it's just zeros across the board, I didn't realize like, oh, they have to justify this next week to the insurance company. Yeah. So zeros across the board, we're not paying for it.
Yeah.
And so is it ethical or moral? They might be in conflict, right? It might not be ethical, but it's definitely moral if this person needs the help to kind of like misreport what's going on, or at least misreport what they are self-reporting.
Just meet the criteria needed to get you another week or two. Yeah, and that's what LCDC is. LCDC is that. For the most part, all you're doing is trying to get more days.
Yeah.
Like you meet with them and you do that, but like the paperwork, that's where everyone's leaning on that because we want you to get more PHP or more. And it sucks, man. I gave an insurance lady a tour of the O one time, and she's like, look, we're not saying they don't need the treatment. We're just saying we're not paying for it. I'm like, golly.
Yeah.
It's dirty.
That's who's setting the pace for what treatment is.
Yeah.
For
sure.
That's who's, and they will cut you at 21 days.
Dude, I've been to facilities, and they have their schedule posted on the wall, and there's 30 minutes, 2 15-minute slots in a day for hand washing. And that schedule is approved by insurance.
Yeah.
Right? You send that schedule to insurance, and it says there's 30 minutes of hand washing a day. right? There's like an hour of cleaning your room a day or something like that. And all this stuff is insurance approved. And the actual, there was like, it was a couple recovery groups, like peer led, and then like one counselor group a day. And, you know, who knows what they're billing. I mean, I got a ballpark, but it's crazy.
The crazy part is like, you know, different insurance companies have different criteria for what they are billing for hourly, right? And it's like on average, it's three billable hours a week, a day. That's 21 hours that you have to figure out what to do with. And so like you're making all of your money in 3 hours. The rest of it is kind of on you to figure out what's advantageous. How do we spend this time? What are we actually going to do? And a lot of it is filled with the cheapest possible option. Right? Oh, we're going to play basketball for an hour and then we're going to do, you guys are going to lead groups. The reality is the margins in this industry are astronomical. This is a high risk industry with great margins. And so people look at like pro formas and like business plans and they're like, oh yeah, I want to get into this. The reality is, and this is where all those questions come into play, where it's like, are we fulfilling our obligation to our clients? Right? Because we're walking a thin line between just checking off boxes and like fulfilling obligations, because people are sending their kids to us to save their lives, and we can't save their life. That people that think they're going to go to treatment and the wherever they're sending them to, that place is going to save their life. You got treatment fucked up. That person has to save their own life. The only thing we're trying to do is facilitate some kind of mind shift. And a lot of people aren't trying to facilitate the mind shift. They're trying to check off boxes. So that they can get that reimbursement.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it happens with burnout too. I mean, you get burnout.
Burnout's a big problem.
Being a counselor, look, shout out to all the counselors, man. It sucks. I mean, some people are built for it, but man, it's just same thing. I mean, I get people confused. Sometimes their stories, I mean, like, because there's so many of them. Right? And, I don't know, man. It's a tough job. And, you know, in the beginning, it was a lot of max effort from me and little effort from them, you know, and I had to learn that. I can't want it more than them. And that's where I built my style of like, look, I'm going to lay this out for you. And young guys, I'll explain to them like, look, when I was a kid selling dope, there was an old man that sat me down and told me how to do it. And that's what I'm doing for you right now. Right? Same thing. I'm giving you the game. Right? And this is what it looks like with decision A. This is what it looks like with decision B. You're a grown up, man. Like, you know, you can look at my life. Like, you know, I'm serious when I tell you all the shit that I've been through and done. Right? So I just give them to him like that, man. And I don't like, one thing that people might disagree on me on, if someone calls me and tells me they're going to get high, I tell them to get high. That's the first thing I tell them. I'm like, well, go get high. Because why are you calling me? Your son, and it's in the other room there, you don't give a shit about him. You're calling me. Your wife. How am I going to stop you from getting high? If you want to get high, go get high. I can't stand in the middle of that. But when you're done, I'll be there. Like, just call me when you're done. And most of the time, they're like, oh, you know, they're looking for a response. And like, I understand that I have no power to help anybody, right? I can give you my experience, and that's it. Right? I can lead you, but I can't make you drink. Isn't that how it goes?
Lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink.
And people led me like that. I don't know if they led me like that, but people did it and I just wasn't ready. You know, I wasn't ready. And maybe, you know, I don't know why. I don't know why it took me until I was 36 with countless consequences. And I have seen a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, you know, first time in treatment, boom, nails it. Right? Maybe he's not. But I've seen like real fentanyl addicts nail it. Right? That are, one of them, I don't want to break HIPAA, but these are my good friends, right? That are super young, successful now. We're fentanyl addicts, right? We're heroin addicts, and they're doing good now. That's why what I wanted to discuss about that question was just that. It's like, what if we don't? Right? What if we do turn them all away and we did have a shot with one? Is it worth maybe taking this money when we know he's probably not, if there's a chance, right?
Yeah. Okay. So around that part, right? Like, everybody talks about planting seeds. Right? Planting seeds, in theory, is, you know, my executive director tells me all the time, he's like, look, we're in an IOP situation right now. the reality is a lot of these people are going to go back to treatment at some point. Like the statistics are enough for us to say like a lot of people are going to end up back in treatment. Now planting seeds is our job. Like we have to be able to get across to them, like break down barriers and like really kind of like offer that opportunity for them to make decisions for themselves and see the fruit of that decision. But the planting seeds process also has a presupposition that they'll make it back. The reality is less and less people are making it back because of the situation that we're in. And I get all conspiratorial about this shit too, because it's like, why is this shit here? Like, why was COVID and the introduction of fentanyl basically happening at the same time? Yeah. Like, how did we end up in a situation where the leading cause of death of people under 40,
18 to 45 is fentanyl
in 2 years, it hits the market 2 years later, leading cause of death.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because heroin's been around for hundreds of years. I mean, it was literally on the shelf 100 years ago, like sold by Bayer, the same people that sell aspirin. It was on the shelf. That shit's been around for forever. That was never the leading cause of death for people under 45.
Yeah.
Fentanyl hits the market, immediately kills everybody. Like, there's got to be something else behind this other than just people making terrible decisions.
Yeah, probably.
You know, and so
I always think there is usually. So
we have enough history behind us to kind of be like, you know, the crack epidemic, like all of this shit, like we kind of know like there's bigger pieces at play here than you and I will ever be able to fuck with, right? And so the whole planting seeds process, that presupposition that they'll make it back, that is putting a lot on that presupposition.
For sure.
You know, and so, yeah. I think
kind of damned if you do or damned if you don't in that situation.
Okay.
It's a tough call because you do never know. And like, of course, man, treatment overall, in my opinion, it's grimy. And I'm not talking about like specific places. We're talking about cash for lives. And like fundamentally, that's grimy. I understand that you got that it's a necessary evil, right? We got to have facilities, we got to have stuff, but it just gets so messy, man. I don't know. I think that
in the nonprofit sector, they don't call it the treatment industry. Do you know that?
What do
they call it the field of recovery. That in and of itself, like you move into a cash-based situation and it changes definitionally. Industry, like that word means something.
Yep.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Like people are stacking and packing people and like turning. And these are normalized terminologies in this industry. Stack and pack and turn and burn.
Yeah.
Like people, I've seen people leave treatment and go right back.
Yeah, that detox money, that recycling. Yeah, I mean, there's places got caught all over Florida, California doing that stuff. I sponsored a guy he said that he would go to treatment for 15 days. They give him $5,000 and he'd relapse and come back and they just keep hitting out insurance. Bang.
You know, there's that famous Kenny Chapman, right? Like he was selling them the drugs too. He would break them off for their stay, send them right back over to his dope house. They would buy the drugs from him. Like from his person that's selling drugs for them. And 2 days later, he called me, "You ready?" "Yep." "All right, let's go." Pick him up, bring him back to treatment. 15 days later, $5,000 over to the dope house, stay there for 2 days. "You ready?" And it was just this whole mess.
That's wild.
Dude, it was a mess.
Golly. He got busted, I imagine.
Oh, he's getting in prison for the rest of his life.
Is he?
Yeah.
Where was that at, in Cali?
Florida.
In Florida?
Florida, yeah.
Wow.
And thankfully, we're aware of that kind of stuff and there's much more safeguards because of that whole situation. There's safeguards that have been put in place, but you allow people to make decisions for themselves without putting any kind of safeguard around trading money for lives, and they will run with it.
Yeah.
And so my whole question around like, are we intentionally sacrificing lives to make money? I'm not saying that anybody that I know is doing that intentionally. I'm not saying that anybody's even doing that. It's a question.
Yeah.
And it's a question that I have to ask myself because can I look myself in the mirror at night and ask myself, like, are you fulfilling your obligation to your clients to justify the home and the car and the lifestyle that I live today? Can I justify that with what I'm delivering in my product?
The quality of product,
Right? And so when I got into this, I said, I just want to move the needle a little bit. I don't know what that means. I don't know how it's going to happen. And then I met Dr. Sean. I was like, all right, this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody has ever said that relapse prediction is possible. But what they have always said is you've relapsed way before you picked up.
Yeah.
So it's got to be possible.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
So if we can prove this model around relapse prediction and introduce the biological component to the relapse cycle, now we're talking about a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
We're saying like, look, there is no moral failing. There is no like, this is obviously a pattern of bad decision making, but there's a physical reason for it.
Yeah.
And we have the answer for you, right? The disheartening part about it is we have to still answer to the standards of the people in charge.
Yeah.
So we're looking at success rates. What is a success? Like, how do they define that? What are the metrics that they're using? Like, the actual metric that they're using for success rate is, can you keep them clean for a year? Okay, well, how do you define a year?
Yeah.
Right? And I told you, it's like the way that they're defining that year is totally dishonest.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to measure anybody else. Just measure everybody that came in December.
Yeah.
They stayed clean for a year. You know, and if you got 100 clients and 13 of them stayed clean for a year, you've met that threshold of a highly successful treatment center.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's crazy.
Very crazy.
It's wild. Yeah. So the super successful is 13%.
13.
Yeah. But I mean, that falls in line with kind of what we were talking about earlier with like the slap on the wrist treatment, you know, your first offense going to treatment, all that kind of stuff. So that plays in those statistics as well. You know, the people just damn sure ain't ready. They're just trying to evade consequences. It's
a hard thing to, so when we came, there was a shift obviously somewhere where it became like, solution. It was like solution oriented to preventative. And like wherever that shift happened, a lot of shit got fucked up. And there's, do you know who William White is? When you look at like addiction statistics and like all of the metadata studies that they're doing and stuff, it's him. Like, you ever see like studies that are done around like outcomes and shit like that? It's him. He's a piece of that.
William White.
Bill White. And there's a group of them. There's like a big government funded like powerhouse that all they do is that they look at outcomes. And all of them hate treatment. They're like, when it became privatized, outcomes suffered by almost 100%.
Yeah.
It changed from like trying to save lives to trying to make money.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's like, do I think that I can like systemically change a system that would, do you know who the biggest owner of treatment centers are? BlackRock. Do you know who owns?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you know who owns? Is
that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The biggest private equity firms that own treatment centers, they're owned by BlackRock.
That's crazy.
Now,
well, of course, everything's owned by BlackRock.
You know who owns like a good percentage of the insurance agencies and companies? BlackRock. So the insurance rates, they're arguing with themselves. Like, they're setting the pace of what the reimbursement rates are by negotiating with themselves, and now everybody else's pace gets set by that too.
Yeah.
And so they don't care how much it is or how low it is because they're paying themselves. So now when you like look at big picture of like what's going on, it's like we are powerless over what's going on.
Yeah, because you can't get around insurance. You can, but
there are models out there, right? Yeah. But now you have taken the spectrum of people that you can work with down to like the smallest possible rung of people. You're talking about like the 0.01% of people that can afford $60,000 a month for treatment. And that's when you really get access to like, because as long as you can pay, you can stay.
Yeah.
And this is where you see kids like, oh yeah, I went to treatment for 9 months and it was $60,000 a month and it was really successful and it really helped. The thing that I found out was, you know, like the people nowadays, the saying is that exposure to treatment dictates outcomes. Well, that saying got mutated. What it used to say was length of exposure to treatment dictated outcomes.
Yeah.
Right. And so now it's just exposure to treatment. So what a lot of people will interpret that as is if you go to treatment, you have better outcomes. When the statistics say you got to go to treatment 7 times to stay clean for a year. So it isn't treatment.
Yeah.
But now you add in like factors like extent, like length of treatment exposure. This is where outcomes change.
Well, and you take most treatment facilities, you take somebody and you take everything away from them. So it's just them in that facility for however long.
Bubble.
In their bubble, right? And then that was one cool thing about where I went. You know, it was I had access to all that. I'm arguing with my wife real time, right? You know, I'm going through this and I'm talking to a counselor. But you take everything away from somebody, they're going to thrive. They're going to do good because they have to do certain things to get certain things. Most places, right? If I do this, I get the phone. If I do this and this, I don't have to sweep or whatever, right? So it's incentivized, all of it. And then when you get out, it's like, well, I'm good, bro. Like, what? I mean, it's not the same, right? Or all of life comes in and hits you at the same time.
Well, and you know, that's like, so a lot of people think like, because they're sold this idea, like all you got to do is stop using and life gets better.
Yeah.
The reality is you go to treatment, the bank's coming after you now, the IRS is coming after you. You're losing the car, you're losing the job, now you're getting divorced, CPS is getting involved. Like shit hits the fan after you get out of treatment. And Dr. Shaw says the likelihood is you get reactivated in the first 90 days.
For sure.
When you look at relapse rates, what is it? People aren't relapsing at 11 months. They are. But the good contingency of them, it's in the first 90 days. Yeah. Like it's really, really hard to put that first 90 days together. There's got to be a reason, right? Why is it that everybody that's relapsing is relapsing that fast? A lot of it is like what you said. They are put in a bubble and now they're expected to deal with real world shit without a commitment to lower levels of treatment. Yeah. Or, a lot of people get that the pink cloud effect, right? Where everything will be good. The second that dissipates and you have to really face shit, like stuff, you know, one thing that happens a lot is people, even people with great jobs, they'll enter recovery. Typically, they entered recovery because shit hit the fan. And so they don't have this job or whatever, and they got to go out there and try to find a way to support the lifestyle that they were living before. And it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to do that without that kind of history. Yeah. Right. But now you got to do that. And a lot of people get a job that doesn't sufficiently support the lifestyle that they were living. And that in and of itself, Dr. Shaw talks about it all the time. Financial insecurity is a huge reason why people relapse. For sure. Yeah. There's relationship drama. There's financial insecurities. There's being re-traumatized in treatment that thinks that they're going to like try to scratch at the surface of this thing and then send you out there. Yeah. Right? There's like all of these things that come into play when you're sending somebody into treatment that really have to be ironed out, not by the people sending them, not by the person that's going to treatment, but by the treatment facility. And a lot of people aren't answering to those questions. Yeah. Yeah. The be careful what you open in treatment. That's like the clinician. Sometimes you see them getting in some really big traumas and you know this person's going to be there 20 days. You're like, bro. That's a bad idea.
Bad idea. Yeah. Yeah. That's a no-no. But I don't know.
I mean, it's a whole situation. It's like we like I said, we can't systemically change. The only thing I have power over is what happens here. And so ultimately the reason why I ask these questions and have these conversations is to inform me on like how I'm going to move forward. Yeah. It isn't to criticize people. It definitely isn't to point fingers. For sure. I'm really just trying to figure out like, how are we going to be a part of the business that saves lives and really do that?
Well, I think you're asking all the right questions. I think we're at a place now in treatment in general that these questions need to be asked. Because it's kind of out of hand. You see it everywhere. It's getting, and I know every place starts out with great intentions. Well, most places start out with great intentions, right? You mean well. It usually starts out with a spark in you, like, oh, you get the eyes open. You're like, you see, and you want to show someone else. You want to bring them to that, right? And the intentions are all good, and then it turns into that machine, right? You get that money, you get and you got to build that insurance. How much did we make this month? And then you start pinging on the dopamine off all that. You know what I mean? And it gets lost, right? The originally intended whatever, it gets lost, right? And it gets drowned by finances and
what I always say that it's like the Italian restaurant industry, right? Like you'll have this Italian family, they want to start a restaurant, right? And they've got a great product. They're flying their grandma in from Italy and like the cousins are coming in. They're like making the pasta in the back and the cheese and whatever. They're like making sauces for days. And then like a couple of years later, and they've got a great product, best food. Everybody loves it. They're like getting recognized and they got these little awards and shit like that. And then a couple of years later, they got that cousin in the back or the whoever in the back that goes, you know what? We could save money right here. Or we could do this. We could change this and save a little money here. We could just stop making the cheese here. We could buy it. It's authentic. We could buy it from over here. And they start making fiscal decisions that overall hurt the product. Right. And so then 5 years down the line, you can see it in the Yelp reviews where people are like, this used to be the best Italian food. And I don't know what happened. Now, the difference is treatment industry, you can coast off of a good reputation. And so the Harmony Grove of 10 years ago, well, guess what? The captain changes because the Matthew Handy over there, like he made some money and he wanted to go sit. You know, and so he hired somebody. Vision changes. Captain of the guard changes. They sell to private equity. Now it's just totally different, right? But guess what? When Matt Handy started Harmony Grove, they had this vision and they talked and all these podcasts and like asked all the right questions, but 5 years later, they're like, you know what? We can cut this corner. Right. And so that's why I ask these questions is because this is informing me on the direction that I have to go. These are the things that I have to look out for myself in order to not fall victim to those same pitfalls because it's on its way. Right. It's coming. There is no question about it. Like if this is successful, I'm going to have to make these decisions. And when that person says, hey, we could save money here, I have to be able to put my foot down and be like, no. What ultimately suffers is the outcome.
What's best for the client. You know, and
it's like, I might be able to buy that Ferrari if I save that money or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but am I fulfilling my obligation? It comes back to those original questions of like looking myself in the mirror and being like, am I okay with what I'm doing?
And you think you want that Ferrari until you get it. And then when you get it, you're just like.
So I am fortunate because I'm kind of like Nikki, right? Where like, I'm not coming from nothing. Right. And so would it be nice to have a Ferrari? Yeah. But it's just gonna sit in my garage. That's it. You know, and like ultimately, like as a status symbol, the way that I see it is like all the rich people that I know, they buy their clothes from Costco. Right. They don't give a fuck about that shit. Like they're not wearing Louis, they're not wearing that shit. Like they're not spending thousands of dollars on their wardrobe. They are, I mean, fucking Steve Jobs drove a Corolla. You know what I mean? It's like
they don't care.
They don't give a fuck about that shit. And ultimately, if I need to, if I'm willing to have these conversations and like speak out the way that I am, and then 5 years from now I sell out, dude, I will never show my face again.
Well, Nikki used to tell me when we were dating, because I had my vape stores and all that, and I'm like, look, if we get another store, if we can get this, I'm gonna get this, and we'll have this, and Nikki's like, dude, money ain't gonna make you happy, man. And I'm like, shut up, you've always had it, you know, like you don't know. And sure enough, man, and I never had Ferrari money, but I had enough, right? And it was empty, right? It was a pursuit that ended in a pursuit, right? You hit that number and you're like, well, you know, if I had this much, I could do this, and then if I had this much, I could do this, and it's never ending, you know. It's the like what I found in recovery is just falling in love with the journey. As cliche as that sounds, but like that day-to-day stuff with my kid, you know, the baseball practice that I don't want to go to, the coach that I'm like, oh, I got to listen to this coach tell Cooper some stuff that contradicts what I've been telling him, whatever. It's like that stuff, man. I live for that, right? Rather than, and it used to always be like, man, hurry up, kid, get a little bit older so we can play catch. Man, do this. And now it's like, slow down, buddy. Slow down.
Because then guess what? They start growing up. And that shit happens faster than you want it to.
Way faster, man. And I pick up my son now and he's heavy, dude. And I think every time, is this going to be the last one? Is it going to be the last time I pick him up like this? You know? Like,
damn.
It's coming, man, you know? And we only have one son. So it's stuff like that. But used to, it was always when I get this, I'm going to be okay. When I have this, I'm going to be okay. When I get this, when I get that, and the bar just keeps moving, and Curtis is never okay, right? I'm never okay. I'm devouring. I want more and more and more. And
The reality about you make more money, you spend more money.
For sure.
Right? And there's always a bigger boat. There's always a nicer car. There's always that shit, right? And it's like, dude, I'm not fucking rich. I'm not. Right? But I understand enough to know, like, dude, I was living under a bridge 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm doing fucking really good.
Really
compared
good.
to,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Compared to that picture, you're doing real good, dude.
yeah. And it's like, dude, I am okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like, dude, I go home, I watch my little baddies, and like, I watch fucking 90 Day Fiance with my wife, and like, we argue over who's dumber.
Yeah.
Like, I recently started watching Seeking Sister Wives. Have you ever watched this? Oh, dude. It is the craziest. I mean, it's like, so in the United States, polygamy is illegal.
Yeah.
And so you see like all these people like trying to circumvent these laws, and it's like they're divorcing their actual wife to like marry this other girl to like, and they're like manipulating the females, like they're sister wives. So like their relationship is the most important, but really the guy's back there like, okay, how am I going to split my week up? Like I'm going to sleep with her tonight and then her the next night. And then it's me time.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, this guy's fucking crazy.
Dude, I can barely handle one.
I can't handle one, you know, like,
no chance I want to do
yeah, no, dude, and then we're always like making those jokes. It's like, she'll be like, oh, you want a sister wife? Okay, I get a brother husband.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Yeah. Yeah, we joke about it, but we ain't doing that.
Yeah, no, we ain't. Yeah,
it's
definitely not doing that.
Yeah, that's the important stuff, man. None of the other stuff. Like, look, I love Story Yourself. I love our cabinet company. I love the stuff that we do. But I'd stop everything right now for time with Cooper. Nothing is more important than that. You know, if he's got games or something, and because, you know, that's the most valuable stuff we have is that time, man. And I wasted so much of it, man. And good time, like good moments that I'll never get back. I missed a lot of his first, you know, because I was high. So, and that's a beautiful thing about recovery today that I really appreciate. It's just the little shit, the shit that used to drive me crazy, you know, being able to enjoy that. But yeah.
Yeah, the evolution of a personal recovery. I don't know where this switch happens. It's different for everybody, but I think everybody's, at least for me, like there came a time where I was like, all of those things that I used to talk about, I would be like, dude, I was that idiot that would be like, I'm homeless and we're like selling drugs to get by, and like Megan's, whatever, we're like doing whatever we can for like enough money. It's never enough, but like,
yeah, it's never enough.
We always like found a way to like have more than a lot of other people, right? And I would always be that idiot where I'm like, my goal was to like have a, like, it's so I don't even want to say it.
A nicer box.
No. My goal was it's so embarrassing. I wanted to have a 2-kilo gold chain. That was like my goal.
Nice,
and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm so gonna do this. Like a homeless dude with like
a 2-kilo. Everybody would think it was fake first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you know, and in my head, I'm like, let them. I don't give a fuck.
Then they
like,
won't steal it.
Yeah, for sure. But that was like the goal.
That was the goal.
Like, dude,
on the streets, if I had that chain, everything would be okay.
Yeah. Right. And now it's like, dude, I would never fucking buy a gold. I would never buy a gold chain.
That's a
today.
big chain. That's a big chain.
No, it was like, because I saw it. So in San Diego, they have like this, you know, have you ever seen like all the jewelry stores in New York?
Mm-hmm. Like
they're all like attached to building. Yeah, they're attached to buildings. Like upstairs, there's like all this. There's a lot of exchange going on. Mm-hmm. They have a jewelry exchange in San Diego. It's like just this one vault of a building where like you've got to go into one door to another door and like unlocking and like talking to cameras and like. And we were in there one day and I saw one, and it wasn't like one of those stupid gay ones that everybody wears now. It's like a choker chain with like huge.
Yeah.
It was like a long, just heavy.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is it.
That's
I made it. I made it as a homeless drug addict. It's so stupid.
Yeah. That's crazy. But it's the best idea you could ever come up with in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, if I have that chain, man, I'll be doing well.
And now, dude, I don't like, I have a watch or whatever, but it's like, I would never buy a gold. I don't care what. I would never buy a gold chain now. Yeah. It sounds just so stupid to me. Anyway, the whole point of all that was like, I found contentment. Like I found comfortability and like peace in the weirdest shit. Like the most simple shit is like, I got to go get my oil changed.
Yeah.
Right.
I had to do that yesterday.
And in my head, I was like, God, that's so weird. Like, I got to go get my oil changed, and I'm gonna pay full price for it.
Full
and like,
price.
Yeah. I'm like, it's like,
maybe get it inspected too. You never know.
Yeah. Fuck it. That extra $20. Like, hey, top off all the fluids,
Being responsible. Yeah. 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 Anyway, where did I stopped off at
You went through your teenage years and like you kind of like.
I think we talked about like the orchard. We got to the orchard. I bounced.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And after that, dude, we just we became counselors full time. We were counselors at the orchard running the aftercare stuff, and that's where we were kind of really introduced to what Story is.
Yeah.
And watching it after we experienced the lessons and stuff, but yeah, we were there for a few years, and then we decided to take it on the road. Right.
You know who was here yesterday?
Who?
Kim Brooke.
Oh, I know her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a fan.
Yeah.
I hope she is. We love Kim.
No, she's total fan.
Yeah, cool.
Total fan.
Cool.
She the way that she described like what happened with you guys and Story and that organization, she was like, I kind of feel like God put me there to like help run them off so that they could end up doing what they're doing.
It was crazy.
And then she ended up leaving it like right after you left, like all that shit at the fan or whatever. And like she ended up, because of all of that situation, they dissolved her position.
Yeah.
And then she was gone.
It was messy, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was messy, but it was what needed to happen.
Definitely.
And no love lost there, man. I really do. I believe there wasn't a place in the country that me and Nikki could have got sober at. And they did stuff for us that no one in the country would do, and I'll forever be grateful to the owners of that place.
Yeah. And you said the country, literally, probably.
Yeah.
Like, you know how many registered residentials there are in the country?
There's got to be a lot. Thousands.
It's like 4,360 or something like that.
Yeah.
Literally, probably none of them.
Yeah.
You know?
They're not going to let that happen. And they did, and they like, dude, when they really did work with me and her individually, us together. I mean, they threw everything they had at us.
Yeah.
And we needed it. I definitely needed it. Going through treatment together was very weird. Like I'd pull up because I left, right? So I was now commuting. I wasn't staying on site anymore. So I was driving an hour and a half twice a day. So 6 days a week. So 3 hours a day I'm driving there and back. And I'd be driving up there and we're fighting, we're arguing, right? And I'd get there and I'd walk in and people would look at me and I'd be like, oh, dude, she's talking shit about me. Like I think that I'm losing all my friends that were there, right? So I'm just like, on that one time I walk into a room, they was in the middle of a group and two guys looked back at me and laughed. And I'm like, okay. So I stepped back out. I stepped outside the group and waited till group was over. When they got out, I'm like, what the fuck were y'all laughing at? And they're like, what, dude? They weren't even laughing at me, right? They were something else. But
delusions of early recovery.
Yeah. But I think that like, oh, Nikki's telling them that I'm being mean or I'm being a jerk or she's lying or whatever it was. You know what I mean? So it was tough. And they had the people that were in residential took a vote on who would relapse. And everyone, 100% of everybody there, including my wife, said me. And Nikki told me about that. And of course, I brushed that off.
That is a weird practice.
Yeah.
That is like a strange one.
It's a weird one, but it did something to me.
That is good.
Yeah, because Nikki she'd always believed in me. Like she'd always had, and for her to not in that moment, I was like, oh, damn, like I must be real bad, you know? And then we had another instance where the family therapist guy, he calls us in and I was like quitting. I was calling him, I was quitting, and the owner called me and she'd be like, motherfucker, we are here because you asked us to be here. Everything that's happening right now, you asked us for and you got it. So bring your ass up here. She kept me on the hooks like that. But this family guy said, hey, look, we talked and we decided that, we're not going to do this for anybody else. It's been too difficult.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, man, fuck you. So I completely did a 180. I'm at every group. I'm nailing. If I have to manipulate, I'm manipulating. But I'm all in because back to what I told you about my son. As long as I'm paying the consequences, I'm good with it. But now you're telling me that I'm going to affect maybe someone else. That maybe this is the last chance that they'll get, and maybe they're only going to get sober together, and this is the only place that'll do it. My mind works weird like that. But it's like, I can't be that reason.
Yeah.
So if I'm a fuck up, I'll fuck up after this.
Dude, like I said, they're not making money on it.
Yeah.
Like, there is no billing code for family therapy.
Mm-mm.
There is no, like, you get extra brownie points for, like, going above and beyond.
Yeah.
So most people are like, fuck that. Like,
Well,
dude,
we were cash pay.
Well, okay.
So they're like, they went ahead, of course.
That's
a little underlying, okay, let's get these people in. They actually, and I didn't pay anything. It was I don't want to act like I'm rich and open the deal. My father-in-law paid for all of it. And, but they came down, I had the money, and they came down to ask me, they were like, hey man, we don't accept your insurance. And I'm like, 145 pounds, mullet. And I'm like, what do you take, Bitcoin? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And turns out Nikki's dad pays for everything. So,
will you take Bitcoin?
Will you take Bitcoin? And they're like, well, yeah, sure. Sure, we'll take it. But they thought I was going to be like, there's no chance that I look like I could have afforded this place.
Yeah, no, that picture's classic.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this guy's going to go. And it worked out good, man. It worked out good. It was the right amount of push for me. You know, It wasn't people telling me what I had to do. It was people showing me that there was something different.
You know what? I was going to say it earlier when you were like, it took 20 years of consequences. Like, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Like, in my head, and this is where I was going before, was there are those one chip wonders, but that's not normal. Mm-mm. It took me 2 decades of really fucking up to put me in that position where I tell people now my addiction ran to its logical course. This is exactly where I was going to end up because of what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to go on for much longer. Like, that's just the way it was. I was either going to go do the rest of my life in prison or die. Well, I'm almost positive I would have never died.
Yeah,
I would have.
I'm there too. I'm not a dyer. I'm going to go to prison forever.
Yeah. Well, and my addiction affects so many other people negatively. That's really what is, like, if addiction is an entity, it's trying to kill certain people, but it would rather keep everybody alive miserable.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it wants everybody, right? And so my addiction, it has tentacles, dude, and it's affecting every fucking person that I come into contact with. It's affecting them. I am robbing, stealing, cheating, getting you hooked, giving you drugs, like whatever it is, like I'm affecting you negatively. And that was like my addiction's goal, is like not trying to kill me, it's trying to make everybody else's life even worse. And so I'm almost positive it would have never killed me. But I was either going to go spend the rest of my life in prison or have a long fucking miserable life. And that just wasn't in the cards. I wasn't going to continue to do that forever. So, but it took all of those painful moments, all of those cold nights, all of those extreme situations of like, am I going to die right now? Like, all of those situations, took every single one of them. I tell people now, like, I've had people ask, like, do you regret anything? And I tell them, there were times in my life where I lived in regret, but from where I sit today, I don't regret a single thing, and I wouldn't change a thing, because I needed every single one of those moments. Because I'm not a smart person, and I'm not a wise person. Smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from others, and I wasn't either of them.
Yeah, no.
So I needed every single one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just how it was. And so I tell people all the time, family work, right? It's like, you are robbing somebody from the full benefit of their suffering. We're all forged in the flames of our own suffering. Yeah. Right? So every time you take the heat off, you've just robbed them from a situation that maybe they would have came inside for the rest of their life. Yeah. Right? Every time they call and say, "Oh, I'm just hungry. Can you cash at me $20?" They're not hungry. They want it's like this whole manipulation cycle. And something that I've seen is that people might be using over trauma and but you get far enough away from your trauma. I've seen the crux of people's problems become the codependency, become the enabling. And now they're just using because it's the cycle. Yeah. Right? It's the cycle to manipulate and use, cheat and use, lie and use. And it's just this whole vicious cycle of at one time they were using because, daddy issues or mommy issues or sexual abuse or physical abuse or abandonment. That was what got the ball rolling. But now it's this cycle of you are enabling them to continue down this path. Yeah. And that becomes the crux of what's going on here. The second you stop, the second somebody has to make these hard decisions by themselves, they are much more likely to stop the bullshit.
Yeah, for sure.
How many times have you seen it where it's people are manipulating the system, and it's like they're mentally ill and they're this and that. And trust me, I'm not saying mental illness is not real. I know it is, but there is a contingency of people out there that are playing the game. And when you pull the carpet out from under them, next thing you know, they're like no longer hearing voices and like, you know, it's like,
yeah, they cleaned up real quick.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to My Last Relapse. I'm Matt Handy, the founder of Harmony Grove Behavioral Health, Houston, Texas, where our mission is to provide compassionate, evidence-based care for anyone facing addiction, mental health challenges, and co-occurring disorders. Find out more at harmonygrovebh.com. Follow and subscribe to My Last Relapse on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you like to stream podcasts. Got a question for us? Leave a message or voicemail at mylastrelapse.com. If you're feeling overwhelmed or struggling, you don't have to face it alone. Reaching out for support is a sign of strength, and help is always available. If you or anyone you know needs help, give us a call 24 hours a day at 888-691-8295.